today, and there's a bit of recrimination over, this is at the UN, over the whole situation regarding Syria, and particularly the resignation of Kofi Annan. He resigned yesterday. Now, the General Assembly, now that's the body in which every country is represented, every country has a seat there, will vote today on a resolution that condemns the Security Council. That's the council that's made up of 15 members with 5 permanent members. Now, the General Assembly is really unhappy with the Security Council because, as far as it's concerned, the Security Council has failed to take action over Syria. Well, explaining his decision to quit, Mr. Annan said international disunity and the growing militarization of the conflict had made his job way too difficult. And as the fighting in Syria itself intensifies, there's also a growing humanitarian crisis inside and outside Syria's borders.
The head of the United Nations has praised Kofi Annan's attempts to broker an end to the Syrian uprising following the peace envoy's resignation. Ban Ki-moon said Annan's task to resolve the 17-month-old conflict had been difficult and thankless.
I can't want peace more than the protagonist, more than the Security Council or the international community for that matter. I have therefore informed the Secretary General of the UN and the Secretary General of the Arab League today that I do not intend to continue my mission when my mandate expires at the end of August.
The former UN Secretary General made the announcement on Thursday in Geneva. He condemned the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Annan also criticized the UN Security Council for being locked in a standoff with Russia and China on one side and Western nations on the other.
At a time when the Syrian people desperately need action, there continues to be finger-pointing and name-calling in the Security Council.
Annan took on his role last February. Since then, he's worked to resolve the Syrian crisis by mediating between the Assad administration and members of the anti-government opposition.
Well, the UN chief Ban Ki-moon has responded to this through his spokesman, who is really praising Kofi Annan's efforts, which he describes as determined and courageous. He has expressed profound admiration for what he says is a most difficult and thankless task. The White House, however, is saying that Kofi Annan's departure really underlines the failure of the Assad regime to abide by the peace plan, and also is pointing the finger more now at Russia and China, saying this underscores too the failure of those countries to hold the Assad regime accountable.
Disappointment, but not surprise from world powers, as Kofi Annan stepped down from his position as UN Arab League envoy to Syria. French officials said his resignation highlighted the impasse on the ground.
We gave Mr. Annan an impossible mission. We must remember that. So it's not surprising that he's made this decision. What is even more serious is that we do not have, and perhaps we never had, a political process. We do not have a political process. We do not have negotiations underway.
Russia, which, along with China, has blocked strong action by the Security Council, pointed the finger at countries that have supported and armed the rebel groups.
One of the reasons that Mr. Annan's efforts have encountered so many difficulties is that his appeal for no further militarization of the conflict, which he started out with as he came in first here to New York, was not really heeded by a number of influential members of the international community.
District by district, the Free Syrian Army is consolidating its hold over eastern Aleppo. Fighting ended in the outer suburbs nearly a week ago. The central city still belongs to the government, but in the east, opposition fighters control the roads. Aleppo is in crisis mode. All over, there are long bread queues. There's no cooking gas, very little petrol, and no municipal services. The city stinks of rotting rubbish. Aleppo's citizens are venturing out onto the streets, but very warily. I'm standing outside the Bab al-Hadid. That's one of the gates to the old city of Aleppo. We're very close to the center here. We've driven extensively through the north and northeastern parts of the city. They are all under Free Syrian Army control. There are checkpoints, bases being set up. Locals here trying to cope with the extraordinary disruption to their lives, rubbish piled high in the streets, and of course the bombing from the air by planes sent from the government. You can see the smoke from the regime's airstrikes. What locals call a MiG-23 made another bombing run while we were there. Families, clearly terrified, run to their basements.
Activists in Hama report a new massacre. They say at least 50 people are dead and the town's been sealed off by government tanks. To the north, rebels say these are Syrian tanks rolling into the city of Aleppo. The battle for control of Syria's largest city has raged for 2 weeks now. Activists say this shows the immediate aftermath of a government attack on a Palestinian refugee camp in Damascus. State TV blamed it on terrorists. Activists say 15 people died there.